Hi everyone, welcome. I was preparing to pull the VermiBag Mini out of its spot against the wall up near the table so I could set up the camera. Now we can get to feeding it, but I wanted to just show you guys a couple minor improvements that I embarked on since the last time we checked in. I think one of the most obvious are the cross braces that I put on to stiffen the entire frame. And that's a recommendation that actually came from the VermiBag company, from Tom, in a video of his where he showed how he was reinforcing his existing frames with cross braces, and what a difference it makes. I mean, this whole thing used to wiggle and wobble, and at the present time it is like super solid. You can see that I did skip putting cross braces out here because this is actually the front of the bag. The front of the bag where there's a little view window, a see-through plastic view window. I guess you could peek in from here to see it, and eventually it'll just be under castings, so there won't be much to see anyway. Besides that, I guess for that reason as well, I took it upon myself to grab some additional bubble wrap. There was already bubble wrap protecting the system a little bit from drying and from evaporation, but I went around it a little bit more and a lot lower, and then I even took some of this old heavy-duty twine that I've got, and I fabricated a little belt to help hold that plastic in place a little bit better. So the system is now up to 559 days of age, fed 44 times. So we've got a nice little assortment of yummy foods for them for feeding 45 right here in the plastic tray. So I'm going to get a glove on, bring these little guys over closer to the bench where we can set up the camera and get rolling on getting them fed. So let's get started. In the dead of winter, most of my systems are feeling the effects of the very dry air in the house, but I can protect most of them quite nicely since they're in plastic containers. In a system like this, in a fabric that breathes, you do lose moisture, and you have to account for that. And it's something I didn't do very well in the past, but more recently I feel like I've been doing a pretty good job of it in terms of being real generous with the moisture, coming in here with the water bottle and dampening things considerably. And the other thing I've been a little bit more generous with lately is the application of bedding too. For the longest time, just back to this view window here, it seemed like the bottom of the view window was always visible. And anything we would pile in, we would always see the level keep dropping. So maybe we can outrun that perpetual collapsing and whatever, shrinking of the material, I guess. I don't know what happens to it all, but it's so weird for the level just to remain stagnant for the longest time. But now it's finally moving the dial a little bit with the very, very generous applications of bedding lately. And I'm prepared to do more of the same. All these leaves that we sprinkled out here on the top, they're all fair game for getting blended in, because guess what? I have more. And I've even got my prepared bedding. So I think the one thing I just like to do, since I want to blend all this leafy matter in, is I just really quick want to excavate the feeding zone. It'll give us a little peek at how the last feeding from 12 days ago is coming along. I can already smell some citrus. I smell lemon. Man, it's so fun now with the added moisture, the feeding zone just being damp and cozy and cool, that when we come looking for worms, we find lots of them. In the past, it always started to seem to me like, where are the worms? Where are they all hiding? They're just nowhere to be seen. But with the boost in moisture, I think, the boost in bedding too probably helps quite a bit, but I think the boost in moisture is really the thing that's been making things real popular and making the worms chubby. I think the nice moisture content in here is resulting in much fatter worms, and it's fun to see fat worms. I wonder if it makes their mouths bigger. Well, if it makes their bodies bigger, I would think they need more nourishment to fuel that bigger body, so hopefully that increases their appetite as well. Alright, so I guess the only reason I wanted to excavate was not just for some quick worm spottings, but I do want to just always get this one object that's been in the bin for so long. It's been with these worms prior to them even coming into this bag. this big old pumpkin stem. This pumpkin stem, on the other hand, is fair game for being fiddled with, possibly even crushed at some point if it gets soft enough to have that happen, but whatever. I'm going to temporarily remove this, place it over here with our food supply, so when we come in with the yummy foods, we'll just come back with that pumpkin stem too. But this would be normally the point in time where we'll do a quick inspection of the outer edge, a lot of times pulling up material from the outer edge over here, which exhibits dryness. That's kind of what I was probing around for down there. I did notice a good bit of material out here that seems like it would benefit greatly from added moisture. So luckily, guess what? We have our magic wand here. So really quick, I'm going to combine the blending in of leaves with the dampening of the dry material around the edges. So let's get that going, and then once that's finished, we can come in here with some yummy foods for these little guys and get them fed. I think this has been helping a lot, you know, just coming in with this this dampening and blending in approach. This has been getting done this way for a few check-ins now, and it just seems like the worms are happier. They've got to be happier. They look plump and well-fed and lively. There's lots of them all over the place. So I'm definitely liking the effects of increased bedding and increased moisture. Alright, so I did take a bonus lap there. Usually I'll just go one time around to get materials blended in and moisture applied, but this time I figured I'd go one more time around and at the same time now turn the attention to excavating the feeding zone for them. So I think we're ready to drop in today's meal. So not only are they going to get leaves at the end as a top coating to replace all those lovely leaves that we just blended in, we're going to give them a couple soiled napkins. Well, no, these are napkins, or no, these are paper towels. Yeah, this one's got a big old coffee stain on it. And then in can come today's meal. I did encounter the old feeding zone indicator. We had a feeding zone indicator floating around in here, which is really just a coffee filter that we use to mark our feeding zone. So we could follow tradition, deploy a feeding zone indicator at the end of this feeding, use this one right here to mark where we last fed, and then in can come the pumpkin stem, and then unfortunately dropping in a bunch of foods that are frozen. Hopefully it doesn't injure the poor wormies getting clobbered with a bunch of, let's see, everything starts with a C, right? Cucumber, cabbage, cantaloupe, melon, and oh, banana. Banana ruined the streak there. We had a cool, even the coffee complied with the letter C. Alright, that looks like a fun feeding if you ask me. I think the worms are going to appreciate that. That's like a medley of all their favorites practically, right? And you know, before we get too far along, I don't want to forget the fact that I've just got a couple more pieces of paper here that I'd like to really just do away with, and then I believe before we put our final dosage of my prepared bedding on top of that, I sprinkled in some crushed eggshell, a little bit of grit to aid with the food. And at this point, I do feel like what we put in probably brings with it sufficient moisture to account for the dry paper towel, the slightly dry prepared bedding of mine. Then again, if all that cucumber and cantaloupe, all that stuff begins to thaw out and emit some of its moisture content, we're probably already in a net positive. So I think between nice juicy foods going in and a fairly generous application of moisture here, we're off to a really good start to see how this plastic wrap that I put around the bag is going to help us maintain the system's moisture level. And I think it might help a lot. I think, well, we'll see. You know, I don't want to be too much of a, you know, trying to predict what's going to happen, because if I do, it's almost likely to go the other way. So I was about to predict a good outcome. a good nice damp system that doesn't lose a lot of its moisture through evaporation, but rather hangs on to it, you know, and doesn't evaporate it all away. But we'll have to see, you know. the bubble wrap, you know, it has little air pockets going around all of the little bubbles, which allows for air, but I don't think it's the end of the world. I think it actually does do quite a nice job, you know, protecting from moisture loss due to evaporation. So I think we're done here. We could just bring on back the plastic coverings and let these little guys get back to work. So I agree with Tom's recommendation of bracing your frame. So if you're a VermiBag owner, or you know, the owner of any sort of system where you had to construct your own frame, not difficult. Just, you know, screw down a couple of these little straps of plywood sort of material, thin, flimsy plywood, and it was enough to really firm up the whole setup. So besides the brace additions, the addition of more moisture retention capability, hopefully we'll see some nice improvements in these systems. And this one's actually been showing really nice signs, and I think the measure is going to be the point where we no longer see that little plastic window. All right, well, we'll see. All right, everyone, that's it for the check-in. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.